Hey guys, tonight we slip behind the velvet curtain of one of the strangest places ever obsessed with beauty, the court of Tudor England. You're not just strolling into a castle, you're entering a living theatre where every look, every scent, every shimmer on a lady's cheek is a carefully calibrated weapon. Here, beauty is survival, and the cost? Well, you'll see. You step through the arched gates of Whitehall Palace just before dusk. The sky hangs heavy, bruised with the last blush of daylight, while smoke curls from dozens of chimneys. The air smells like roasted swan, beeswax and something floral, but sharper. You can't name it. You follow the echo of satin heels and low laughter through stone halls, torchlight flickering across silk banners and tapestries. The moment you pass beneath the great arch, you feel it. The court sees you. They don't speak. Yet. But they notice everything. Your hem, your teeth, the distance between your eyes. There's a woman leaning on the balustrade, her gown the colour of fresh cream, her face powdered to match. Not a single hair out of place. Her cheeks blush faintly under candlelight, her lashes stiff with resin. She nods once, and your stomach drops. A lady in waiting intercepts you with a quiet smile. She smells like rose oil and wood smoke. "You're late," she murmurs, adjusting your collar, as if plucking invisible dust from your skin. The Queen is watching. You glance up, expecting to see Her Majesty herself, but no, just more courtiers. The watching never ends. A handmaid tugs you into a side chamber. She speaks no words as she lifts your chin with 2 fingers. Then, like clockwork, she begins. Powder, pigment, salves and balms. She dabs your temples with vinegar, plucks a stray brow hair. A hot pin presses against your eyelid. You flinch, and she tisks. You'll get used to it. Your gown is laced so tight it steals your breath. "Exhale," she commands, and you do. The bodice clamps in like a vice. "There," she says, "now you look loyal." You want to ask what she means, but the bell rings. The bell that calls the ladies of the court to supper, to schemes, to scrutiny. The grand hall stretches before you like a theatre stage. Long tables glint with pewter and gold. The floor is waxed so bright it reflects the torches above. Every lady is lit like a portrait, framed in ruffs and glimmering fabrics. You notice one odd thing, though. No one sweats. They should be sweating. It's warm in here, and their sleeves are practically armour. But their cheeks remain dry, their temples unshining. That's when you notice the powder. It's thick. Not just pale, but chalk white, layered like paint. You don't realise you're staring until a lady meets your gaze. Her face is expressionless, but her eyes are sharp as pins. "First time?" she asks. "Don't worry. If you're lucky, you'll keep your eyebrows through winter." She raises a goblet to her lips, but she doesn't drink. No one drinks much. They don't want to stain their teeth, you hear. There's more to beauty here than looks. It's about discipline, precision, sacrifice. Everyone is acting. All the time. You remember what the handmaid whispered as she buttoned your sleeves. "Beauty is power, but power isn't kind." Then she smiled. Not cruelly, just knowingly. A gentleman passes with a tray of candied violets, but you decline. One wrong choice, and your breath might smell, well, not royal enough. You tuck your hands into your sleeves and straighten your back, mimicking the woman across the table. She hasn't blinked in 20 seconds. The evening stretches long. Talk flows in coded tones. Laughter rings too sharp. You begin to understand. This is not a court. This is a pageant, a battlefield, a mask worn by everyone, every hour, even while asleep. And tomorrow it begins again. You sit very still as the hall exhales around you, the scrape of trenchers, the low hum of strings. Somewhere, A lute stumbles into a tune and finds it again. Every movement feels rehearsed, even the pauses, especially the pauses. You learn quickly that stillness is part of the performance. Too much motion suggests nerves. Nerves suggest weakness. Weakness travels fast here. Across the table, a lady dabs her lips with linen, careful not to smudge the pale paint that climbs all the way to her hairline. In this court, a face untouched by colour is a liability. You've already heard the whispers. Bare skin looks rude, unfinished, even suspicious. The favoured look is not health, but purity, an unearthly white meant to suggest refinement, chastity, and distance from the sun and labour. You recall how the handmaid layered the powder earlier, tapping, smoothing, tapping again, until your pores felt sealed. She said it would last all day. She didn't say what it would do after that. A ripple passes through the room. Not sound, attention. Someone important has shifted. You feel it before you see it. The Queen is not present tonight, but her tastes are. Everyone knows them. Everyone copies them. When her complexion grows paler, so do theirs. When she favours a higher brow, tweezers come out across the court like a quiet plague. Fashion here is not a trend, it's a directive. You lean closer to the woman beside you, careful to keep your voice low. She tells you, almost kindly, that the paint you're wearing is mixed fresh each morning. White lead, ground fine, blended with vinegar or rose water until it spreads like cream. It covers scars, freckles, sunburn, pox marks, anything that hints at life beyond these walls. It's been used for years, she adds, ever since the Queen herself adopted it to disguise the marks left by illness. You nod, filing that away. You also notice how her hand trembles when she lifts her cup. The food arrives in heavy courses, rich, sweet, expensive. Sugar dusts everything. It coats almonds, fruits, pastries shaped like flowers. You taste it on your tongue and understand suddenly why so many smiles here are closed-lipped. Sugar is status. Sugar is rot. Blackened teeth are not shameful in these halls. They're proof you belong. You press your lips together, suddenly self-conscious. As the evening deepens, the room grows warmer, thicker. Perfumes collide. Civet's musky edge tangles with clove, and something animal and deep, you later learn, comes from the insides of whales. It's meant to overwhelm the senses, to replace the reality of bodies beneath layers of silk and powder. You breathe shallowly. Your skin itches under the paint. A faint prickling that crawls along your cheeks and jaw. A lady further down the table excuses herself. Two maids follow, eyes down. You hear later she felt faint. It happens. Too much paint, too little rest. Sometimes hair falls out. Sometimes skin cracks. Sometimes worse. No one says that part aloud. They just smile and adjust their sleeves. When the meal finally ends, you retreat to your chamber, guided by candlelight. The mirror on the wall catches your reflection. Warped, dim. Still, the face looking back startles you. Pale, smooth, almost unreal. For a moment you understand the seduction. In this light you look powerful, untouchable. Then you lean closer and see it. A faint redness at the edge of your hairline where the paint thins. Your skin protests quietly. You touch it, then stop. Touching ruins things. You lie back on the bed, fully dressed, because removing everything would take too long, and the morning comes fast. As the candle burns low, one thought settles in, heavy and calm. This beauty is not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to be convincing. And tomorrow, you'll add another layer. Morning comes not with birdsong, but with the soft creak of your chamber door opening. A maid steps in, balancing a basin of vinegar-scented water and a tray of small glass pots. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. You sit upright, already bracing yourself. The ritual begins again. First, your face is wiped clean, though clean is a generous word. The rag is coarse, the vinegar stings, every swipe pulls at the delicate skin around your eyes and nose. You wince. Underneath yesterday's layer of powder is not bare skin, but something rawer, slightly inflamed, paws raised in protest. The maid tuts quietly. She's seen worse. She's probably caused worse. Next comes the lead white. Again. Today's mixture has a creamier sheen. She tells you it was stirred with rose water and just a touch of egg white to help it set. You wonder if the Queen prefers that blend, or if it's just what was available. The maid dips a small rabbit foot puff into the mixture and pats it gently onto your cheeks, your forehead, your chin. The scent is faintly sweet, the danger invisible. White lead, they say, brings smoothness, perfection. But what it also brings, over time, is trembling hands, decaying skin, headaches that come in waves and never fully leave. Still, no one stops. Even as sores bloom beneath the surface, they keep applying. Because to stop would be to reveal, and no one wants to see what's underneath. As she works, the maid hums a tune you don't recognise. You stare at the small mirror perched on the table. It's warped, made with polished metal and backed with mercury. Your face curves unnaturally at the edges like it's slipping away. You blink. The powder settles like frost. She dabs a bit of cochineal onto your cheeks for blush, though sometimes crushed brick is used when the court runs low on imported beetles. Then a touch of soot for the lashes, fixed in place with tree resin. You're warned not to blink too quickly while it dries. Or they'll stick together, she murmurs, not unkindly. A final dusting of rice powder. Then silence. She steps back and nods. You stand and glide to the window, curious how the light will catch you. The result is ghostly, pale as parchment, regal. You don't quite recognise yourself. That's the goal. You've heard whispers about this ritual in the lower halls. They call it the Mask of Court, not because it hides, but because it transforms. Here, beauty isn't about attraction, it's about projection. You must appear unbothered, untouchable, eternally composed. No redness, no sweat, no smile lines. You're a painting, framed and finished. There was a time, you remember, when you wore your face bare, a bit of rose water, a ribbon in your hair, maybe some balm if the wind had bitten. But that time feels far away now. Here, natural is naive, natural is dangerous. Just last week a new lady arrived from Kent. She had freckles. Freckles! They dotted her cheeks like little stars. She laughed too loudly, too often. The Queen's second cousin watched her for exactly one evening before arranging a sudden posting, somewhere remote. She's gone now. No one mentions her name, and so you learn. You watch the others, refine your technique. Tilt your chin to the right angle. Hold your breath when powdered. Never scratch, never smear, never sweat. Your very survival may depend on it. As you step into the hallway toward the great gallery, you pass another courtier being painted in her chamber. Her handmaid is applying layer after layer, carefully avoiding a sore blooming near the temple. You meet eyes briefly. She nods, tight-lipped. You both understand. This is the cost, and soon your own paint will start to sting. You step into the long gallery just as the sun slices through the tall windows, lighting every mote of dust and powder still floating in the air. The floor beneath your feet is cold stone, warmed faintly by the press of velvet slippers. The ladies ahead glide more than walk, their movements smooth, their expressions carved in porcelain. You're still learning the art of it, how to wear paint like armour, how to blink without flaking. A gentleman pauses to compliment your complexion. You smile modestly, dipping your head. The praise feels strange. It isn't really your face he admires, is it? It's the effort, the illusion, the shared agreement that beauty here is performance, not inheritance. Later in the withdrawing room, you join a circle of ladies near the window seat. Conversation flutters, court gossip, Spanish gloves, the Queen's latest mood. You listen more than speak. One woman leans in to adjust her sleeve, and the edge of her white painted jaw flakes ever so slightly, revealing the pink skin beneath. Her eyes flash to yours, and for a second there's panic. Then she turns her face away, calling for a handmaid with a compact pot tucked in her sash. The powder is reapplied before anyone else notices. You wonder how many times this happens each day. One of the older ladies leans closer and murmurs something meant only for you. They say if you paint your face too thick, the skin forgets how to breathe. She chuckles without mirth. But then again, what does breathing get you here? You laugh softly, though the joke is darker than it first appears. It's true, your skin has begun to change. Where once it was soft, it now feels tight, like a stretched parchment. Small bumps have appeared near your ears. You dab a bit of salve at night, but it does little. You heard another maid whisper about a noblewoman who had to sleep sitting up because her cheeks blistered where the powder cracked. She stopped smiling altogether, but her place at court remained secure. The Queen, of course, is the origin of all this. No one dares say it aloud, but everyone knows. After a bout of smallpox in her youth, Her Majesty bore scars along her jaw and chin. Rather than hide from view, she perfected the mask. White lead paint, red lips, a face unmarred by time or blemish. Over the years, that mask became fashion, and fashion became law. Now every woman in her orbit must follow suit, or risk falling behind. There are no half measures. The paler your face, the more powerful your position appears. A flushed cheek might suggest poor health, or worse, emotion. And if your cheeks are too red without pigment, questions will follow. Still, some go further. You overhear talk of a lady who adds powdered mother of pearl to her paint for shimmer. Another mixes it with ground alabaster stolen from a statue base. One even dabs a drop of mercury behind each ear, claiming it lends her a glow. You don't know if it's true, but you do notice her pupils are always slightly too wide. The longer you stay at court, the more you understand that beauty here is not indulgent, it's aggressive. A weapon drawn before dawn and worn until candlelight, and each morning you must choose to put it back on. That evening when the maid comes to wipe your face, she hesitates. "You're bleeding, my lady," she says softly, pointing to a small crack at the corner of your nose. You hadn't noticed. She hesitates, cloth in hand. "Shall I stop?" You look at the mirror, at your reflection, and you shake your head. "No," you whisper. "Begin again." She nods, and the cloth begins to scrape. The candles flicker low, but you're still awake, seated by the dressing table with a thimble-sized vial in your hand. It's dark glass, stoppered with wax and sealed with thread. No label, there never is, but you already know what it holds. Belladonna, the court's most dangerous flower. You stare into the mirror, if you can call it that. Just a slab of tin-polished metal backed with mercury, slightly warped at the corners, your face bending at the edges like a painting gone soft. You steady your breath. The maid holds out the eyedropper with both hands like an offering. "Just one drop," she says, though you already know the rule. More than that, and your vision will blur, or worse. You tip your head back, and she leans in close. The drop falls, cold and sharp, and you blink rapidly as your eye adjusts. Then the other. A few seconds later, the pupils bloom wide, swallowing the colour from your irises. Doesn't hurt exactly, but it feels wrong. Like your body knows it's not supposed to be this way. Still, you look. Striking. At court they call it nightshade charm, a soft gaze, a dreamy look. Wide pupils are a sign of beauty, an imitation of love-struck wonder. The effect is instant. Your reflection stares back, not cold, not calculating, but soft, vulnerable. Not you exactly, but a better version, a version they'll adore. You've heard the stories, of course. Belladonna means beautiful woman in Italian, but it's not a compliment, it's a warning. The plant is poisonous from root to tip. Even a handful of berries can kill, but when distilled and applied precisely, it makes your eyes glisten like polished glass. You leave the dressing table and join the others in the gallery. The difference is immediate. Men pause mid-sentence as you pass. Women glance sideways, then whisper behind lace fans. One even leans in and asks what pomade you used on your brows. You smile, blinking slowly, but you can already feel the edge of it. The room seems brighter than it should. The tapestries sharper, the chandeliers haloed in gold. Your heart flutters a beat too fast. It will pass, but only if you rest soon. Someone taps your arm, a steward. The Queen has asked for your presence, he murmurs. You freeze, not with fear exactly, but with calculation. A summons is not always a punishment, but it is always a test. You're led through twisting halls, the walls heavy with oil portraits and hush. When you enter her antechamber, Her Majesty is seated by the hearth, a book open but unread. She lifts her gaze and you curtsy deeply, heart pounding. You've changed your paint, she says at last. You hold your breath. It suits you. She closes and your eyes. You wait. Are particularly soft this evening. You thank her quietly. She dismisses you with a flick of her hand, but the message is clear. You've passed. Outside the chamber, your knees tremble. You lean against the cool stone wall, letting your breath even out. You realise then that you can't quite read the carved words above the hearth anymore. Not because they're far, but because your pupils are too wide. It'll wear off. It always does. Unless you dose again. You remember the story of Lady M. How her eyes stayed wide even in sleep. Her handmaid said she eventually stopped blinking altogether. But that was probably just gossip. Probably. You're escorted back to your chamber just before the candles in the hallway are snuffed, your footsteps silent on the rush matting. Your eyes are still far too open, pulling in every flicker, every reflection, every shine on the polished wood. It's beautiful, but overwhelming. Even the glint of your own ring feels like a dagger's flash. Inside, your maid waits by the bed with another vial. Lavender water, she says, to calm the nerves. But you both know it's not just nerves anymore. The belladonna lingers. Your head swims, and the walls feel closer than they should. You nod, and she helps you lie back, adjusting the silk sheet so your painted face doesn't smudge. Heaven forbid the powder stain the pillow. As she smooths your hair, you whisper, "Why do they all do it?" She hesitates, then quietly, like telling a bedtime secret. Because eyes lie, and beauty is more convincing when it stares back like a doe. Gentle, trusting, harmless. You close your eyes for a moment, and even then you still see light. The next morning your vision remains blurred around the edges. Your eyes ache, dry and defiant. But there's no time for recovery. The summons come early. Preparations for the hunt, and all ladies must look their best. No excuses. This time the maid hesitates before reaching for the vial. "Again?" she asks. You meet her eyes in the mirror. Yours still dilated, hers steady and lined from years of watching others ruin themselves beautifully. You nod. Just one. And that's how it begins. One drop to look lovelier. One drop to keep favour. One drop to not fall behind. You hear of another girl, 2 doors down, who tried 3 drops last week. She hasn't left her chamber since. Some say she is resting. Others say she can't look at candlelight without screaming. It's just a rumour. Probably. You see Lady Brandon in the corridor later that week. Her eyes are enormous, black as ink and unmoving. She smiles, but her lips don't quite meet her expression. She walks carefully, as if the world around her has grown unfamiliar. You notice a small bruise blooming along her cheekbone. A stumble, someone says. A touch of dizziness. Nothing serious. But when she turns away, you notice she has no reflection in the polished goblet she carries. Not because she's supernatural, but because she never looks down. She never sees it. Some nights you find yourself staring into your warped mirror for too long. You tilt your head, blinking slowly, and wonder if you're beginning to forget what your eyes once looked like. The brown flecks near your iris. Have they always been there? Was the left eye always slightly larger? Did you always look this hollow? Then you blink, hard, and reach for the vial. Not because you want to, but because you must. Your place at court depends on it. Because if your eyes stop captivating, someone else's will, and you've seen what happens to those who fall out of focus. It's late again, and your scalp itches. You sit on a cushioned stool while your maid gently unpins the mass of hair piled atop your head. She's careful, but no amount of caution can stop the tiny winces from slipping through your teeth. The pins have been in for 12 hours, maybe more. There's a headache blooming just behind your temples, the kind that feels like it's lodged behind your eyes. Strand by strand, she removes the pins, and finally, the structure collapses. Your hair falls, but not all of it. Some strands remain tangled in the netting. Others come away stuck to the velvet ribbon. A few cling to the comb, and in the candlelight you see it, thinning. More than yesterday, more than the day before. Arsenic in the powder, the maid murmurs without looking up, and the sugar, and the perfume. It all goes through the scalp eventually. You nod slowly. You already know. Every lady at court knows. But what can you do? You can't arrive tomorrow half-bald. There's only one answer. You stand and open the oak chest at the foot of your bed. Inside is a bundle wrapped in lace. You unfold it carefully. The wig is still warm from the fire where it rested earlier, stuffed lightly with lavender to mask the faint scent of oil and wool. This one is copper-coloured, threaded with golden ribbon, curled tightly in a spiral pattern meant to mimic youth and health. It's not your first. Your real hair, once dark and thick, now lies limp at the nape of your neck, braided tight and hidden under a linen cap. The wig fits over it like a crown, secure with wire hooks and small combs. You glance in the mirror. The effect is instant. Suddenly, you're vibrant again, elegant, whole. No one would guess that underneath, your scalp burns and your real hair is nearly gone. In the morning, the ladies line up for the hunt. It's ceremonial. Few of them will actually ride. But the display matters. Strength, health, beauty. That's the illusion. The queen arrives on horseback, her auburn wig glowing in the sun. The same style you're wearing now. A quiet signal. You are loyal. You follow. Beside you, Lady Eleanor tugs at her curls. "Do you think it's too obvious?" she whispers. You glance at her wig, streaked blonde with a fringe that falls slightly too low on her forehead. You nod gently. She grimaces. "I knew I should have used goat hair instead." Goat hair. Human hair is expensive and rare, especially matched by colour and texture. So sometimes they mix in animal strands, or hair collected from the poor, or, rumour has it, from the dead. You've seen the servants brushing out wigs that shed faintly damp curls, whispering of grave robbers and quiet deals made with undertakers. Of course, no one speaks of that above stairs. Back in the gallery that afternoon, you catch sight of one woman's wig slipping slightly. A patch of grey scalp flashes beneath before she adjusts it with a fan. Another lady coughs delicately, drawing. Attention elsewhere. No one says a word. That night, after the court retires, your maid gently removes the wig and places it back in its silk case. You run your fingers over your scalp. The skin is tender. Near your crown there's a sore forming. "Shall we try lavender oil tomorrow?" your maid asks softly. You nod, but you both know it won't be enough. The next morning a new wig arrives. This one is a gift, wrapped in parchment and tied with a green ribbon, the colour of the Queen's latest hunting cloak. A favour, perhaps, or a warning. At court, even generosity hides a motive. You unfold it slowly, your fingers grazing the strands. It's finer than the last, pale gold, almost silvery at the ends, not a shade found often among the living. Your maid says nothing as she lifts it, but you see the tightness in her jaw. She runs a comb through it slowly. "The curls are too even," she says. "Machine spun. French." She means it came from elsewhere, from someone else's head, far away, perhaps not willingly. You don't ask where the hair came from. You never do. Once you heard a rumour that an entire shipment of wigs to the English court came from the heads of plague victims, cut before burial, boiled, perfumed, and sent north. It's probably untrue. Probably. The wig fits well. Too well, almost. As though it was made for you before you needed it. It clings tightly along the nape and temples, the hairline seamless. The curls bounce with unnatural joy. You wear it that afternoon to the gallery, and the reaction is immediate. A few heads turn, a few glances linger. The Queen's lady-in-waiting, Lady Mirabelle, brushes your shoulder as she passes and murmurs, "Brave choice." You smile politely, but when you reach for a book and your wrist shows, you hear a whisper behind you. "Her hair wasn't that colour yesterday." You stiffen. They noticed. You retreat early that evening. In the mirror, the wig glows pale in the candlelight. You remove it carefully, pressing a cool cloth to your scalp. It's sore, as always. But this time, your hands shake. "You must rest your scalp," your maid says. "You're losing too much." But you know rest is a luxury you can't afford. The next morning you find a gift left on your dressing table. A small pot of dark paste and a single black comb. No note, but the message is clear. It's from another lady. A warning, or maybe a dare. The paste is made from walnut shells and ash, designed to darken the scalp where the wig thins or slips. It hides the illusion's edge. Some even use it to paint fake hairlines, drawing little strokes just beneath the lace to make the wig seem more real. You dab it on. Your maid watches silently. When you finish, you look again. You pass, just barely. At court, passing is all that matters. Later that week, Lady Anne collapses during supper. Her wig had been too tightly secured with lead pins. The blood couldn't reach her scalp. When she fainted, it took 3 women to lift her, careful not to dislodge the curls. She returned 3 days later, smiling as if nothing had happened. A slightly different wig, a slightly quieter laugh. No one mentioned it. You start keeping your old wigs in a trunk under your bed. You say it's for backup, but secretly you can't bring yourself to throw them out. They feel like pieces of you, your stages, your past selves, each one more perfect than the last, each one more painful to wear. You begin to wonder, when the paint fades, the belladonna wears off and the wig is removed, who remains? No one at court ever answers that question. They just tie the next ribbon and smile. The new corset arrives wrapped in tissue and bound with silk cord. Navy blue, the colour of mourning for a cousin you never met. It's tighter than the last, with fresh boning made from whalebone and hardened reeds. You run your fingers along the inside and feel no give, no softness. This one was made not just to shape, but to discipline. Your maid lays it across your bed like a relic. "From Lady Cecil," she says, her voice unreadable. "A gift, then? or perhaps a test. You exhale. That's the trick. She pulls the laces at your back as you hold your arms aloft. The pressure builds in increments, soft at first, then sharp, then unbearable. Your ribs push inward, your breath shortens. You grip the post of your bed, not because it helps, but because it's something to hold. Higher bust, the maid mutters. She favours it this week. She means the Queen, of course. Everything here pivots around her silhouette, and lately she's raised her bodice. That means everyone else must follow. Tighten, lift, compress. It's not about comfort, it's about message. A high bust suggests youth, virtue, fertility, and in court, even your ribcage must declare loyalty. When the final knot is tied, you can't quite speak. You sit slowly. The corset digs beneath your arms and presses against your pelvis. Your organs feel displaced, like they've been packed into the wrong drawer. You're reminded, absurdly, of those carved ivory reliquaries in the chapel. Hollow boxes shaped like saints, made to contain suffering beautifully. Later, you walk the length of the gallery with the others. No one breathes deeply. No one laughs. The air feels thin, as if the walls are compressing alongside your bodies. Lady Whittington whispers, "If I faint, don't let me fall forward. It bruises the chin." You both smile, but neither of you is joking. A young girl passes by, just introduced at court this week. Her corset is too loose. Her waist is soft, natural. You see the way others glance at her, not with malice, but with pity. She'll learn, or she'll be dismissed. That evening, a physician visits the court. Not publicly, of course, but quietly, with a pouch of salves and a ledger of bruises. You hear whispers of cracked ribs, displaced livers, miscarriages blamed on laces drawn too tight. But none of it stops the trend. You remember last winter when Lady Arundel sneezed at supper and cracked a rib. She smiled through it. Didn't leave the table. That's what it means to belong here. Back in your chamber, your maid loosens the laces slowly. Each inch released feels like a breath returned from the dead. When the final knot comes free, you collapse onto the chair, lungs gasping, chest heaving, ribs aching. She lifts your chemise. Purple lines arc across your skin, indentations from the boning. A small bruise darkens under your sternum. "I can press comfrey into the fabric tomorrow," she offers gently. "It softens the edge." You nod, still dizzy. But you both know. Softness is not the goal. Shape is. And you'll wear it again tomorrow. Because the corset isn't just for posture. It's for survival. That night, you sleep sitting upright, not by choice, but by necessity. The bruising across your ribs makes lying flat unbearable. Even when the corset is removed, the ache remains, a phantom grip, as if your body still believes it's being cinched. You shift slightly in the chair by the hearth, layered in a loose robe, trying to coax your lungs to expand all the way. They don't. At dawn, the bells ring early. There's word of a foreign ambassador arriving. That means a banquet. That means scrutiny. That means the corset, again. But this time, there's a twist. You're summoned with the others to the Queen's private dressing chamber. Only a select few. A kind of honour, though you're not sure you're glad. Inside, the Queen's new bodice hangs like a weapon. It's stiffer, narrower, with tiny pearl buttons marching up the spine. A whisper moves through the room. She's had it altered, shortened by half an inch, lifted higher. The signal is clear. Everyone must follow. Lady Mirabelle catches your eye and raises her brows, very slightly. You both understand. The standard has shifted again. You'll have to go tighter. That afternoon you try your first true breast binder. Unlike the corset, it's not meant to cinch your waist, but to flatten the midriff and lift the bust unnaturally high. It's made of layered linen and horsehair, and it wraps around the chest like a vice. Your maid pulls it tight with shaking hands. She's muttering something. Prayers, maybe. Your breath is short before it's even fully tied. When you look down, your chest is unnaturally high, almost to your collarbone. Your shoulders round forward, forced by the shape. But the silhouette is flawless. In the mirror, you almost resemble a mannequin carved from ivory. At court that evening, the change is noted. The line is cleaner, someone murmurs as you pass, more continental. A compliment, for now. But every compliment feels like a threat too, because once you've set a new standard, you have to maintain it, even if it hurts, even if it harms. You hear of a lady who wore her binder for 3 days straight, couldn't lift her arms after. Another who fainted in the garden, face first into a rose bush. She bled through her powder, and it took 3 handmaids to repaint her before supper, yet none of them stopped. Because each tight lace, each lifted bust, each bruised rib means one thing: you still belong. That night, your maid brings a paste of vinegar and crushed mint leaves to press into your side. The cooling helps a little. You close your eyes and try to remember what it felt like to breathe without pain. You can't. You ask her quietly, "Did they always bind like this?" She hesitates. "Only since Her Majesty turned 35, she says. Before that, the fashion was softer. You do, the math. You have 5 years, maybe less. You wonder what happens after that. Do you loosen the laces? Let the bruises fade? Or do you simply vanish? No one talks about the women who disappear from court. One day they're there, stiff-backed, perfect-skinned, powdered and painted, and then suddenly they're not. No farewell, no scandal, just a quieter seat at supper, a letter unopened. Perhaps their ribs never quite recovered. Perhaps their lungs gave up first. Perhaps their beauty simply slipped one morning and the court looked away. You stare into the fire and don't ask again. Tomorrow you'll wear the binder again. You'll smile through the ache, and you'll stand tall, because that's what beauty demands. And you're still here, for now. You wake to the sour tang of vinegar rising from your wash basin. The air is sharp with it, nose wrinkling, eye-watering. Your maid is already there, sleeves rolled to the elbow, holding a linen cloth soaked in the mixture. She doesn't wait for you to rise. She begins wiping your arms with brisk practice strokes. It stings. Opens the pores, she says, not looking at you. Keeps the stink down. You'll want to scrub the neck especially. They'll be near you at the banquet. She means the ambassadors, and she means the other women. Bathing at court is rare. Full immersion happens only a few times per month, and only then with herbs, rose petals and expensive oils to soften the water. Between those moments, your body is maintained like a prized tapestry. Dusted, brushed, dabbed, perfumed. Not cleaned, just managed. You lift your arms. The maid wipes harder under them, then moves to your neck and behind your ears. Smells cling to lace, she mutters. Once it's in, it stays. The cloth is grey when she's finished. Next comes the powder, mixed today with dried lavender and the faintest hint of chalk. It soaks up moisture, covers irritation, hides the truth. She brushes it across your collarbone and back, letting it fall like ash. Then a small pot appears. "This is new," she says, almost gleeful. She opens the lid. Inside is a faint red paste, berries, crushed rose petals, and something else. The colour is deep and unnatural. You raise your brows. "Rat fur," she says. You blink. "What?" "Rat fur and raspberries, boiled down, gives it texture, helps it stay." She dabs it gently on your cheeks. The pigment is vivid, alarmingly so. Your reflection in the mirror startles you, like your face is flushed in fury or fever. But she blends it expertly, patting with a sponge until the hue fades to a warm, unnatural blush. "Don't worry," she says, "it's clean. They boil the fur, or say they do." You're not reassured. Still, you say nothing, because it works. Your face looks vibrant, alive, and that's what matters. Later, in the corridor, you pass Lady Agnes. She's flushed too, but naturally. Her skin glistens with real heat. You know at once, she didn't vinegar scrub this morning. She's glowing from nerves, or exertion, or both. You glance away quickly, out of politeness. But you know others will not. At the banquet, the air is heavy with perfume. Orange blossom, civet, musk, and the unmistakable sour twist of vinegar rising off a dozen powdered bodies. The heat from the hearth only thickens it. Everyone glows, but no one sweats, at least not openly. A man leans in to kiss your hand and wrinkles his nose just faintly. Not at you, but at the woman beside you. Her scent is too strong, something overripe. Later, you learn she mixed clove oil with wine and dabbed it behind her ears. An old trick, but too much, and it curdles. It's always a gamble, too fragrant and you smell desperate, too faint and you smell real. The goal is to hover somewhere in between, like a bouquet left just long enough to wilt but still lovely. You take shallow breaths. You do not move too much. You remember, don't lift your arms, don't turn your head quickly, don't wrinkle your nose, and when you return to your chamber, you do not ask what's in tomorrow's rouge. You just pray it doesn't crawl. That night, your maid lays out tomorrow's tools like a surgeon preparing for delicate work. Cloth, brush, tallow balm, and the little crimson pot of rat fur rouge. You eye it with quiet suspicion, but say nothing. You're too tired to protest, and besides, it worked. Today, no one winced at your complexion. No one whispered after you passed. In court, that counts as a victory. You sit while she oils your arms with goose fat. It's warm, slick, and smells faintly of meat, though she's added a sprig of rosemary to mask it. The fat glides across your skin, sealing in the vinegar scrub from earlier. It's meant to soften, protect. But the moment it cools, it begins to congeal. Keep still, she says gently. She dusts a little powdered pearl over your chest, mixing shimmer with fat. Your décolletage glows like moonlight, but sticky. At supper, Lady Eleanor brushes against you and recoils slightly. Her gown sleeve clings to your arm for a breath too long. The goose fat has warmed again. You both pretend not to notice. You know the feeling will haunt her sleeve until laundry day. Later, in the gallery, you overhear a pair of ladies murmuring about new salves from Italy. One boasts hers includes crushed snail shell and bat's blood. Very effective for smoothing the elbows, she says. You don't ask how she came by that knowledge. In truth, none of you really know what's in half these concoctions. Most are handed down through servants or passed quietly between dressing rooms like contraband. One maid says she mixes her lady's balm with barley flour and swan marrow. Another swears by onion juice under the arms. It masks better than perfume, she insists, once it dries. You've learned not to be surprised. You've also learned that real bathing, actual immersion in warm water, is risky. Stripping bare means revealing everything. Bruises, welts, cracks from powder, sores from binders. And more than that, it means removing your mask, your court mask, your protection. So instead, you scrub in parts. Vinegar for the armpits, rose water for the hands, a lemon slice for the neck. And when even that feels too exposing, you powder over the sweat. Perfume over the powder. Repeat. There's a phrase whispered among the lower maids. Clean enough for candlelight. That's the standard. Not hygiene, illusion. One night, Lady Agnes faints during a card game. It said she hadn't washed her scalp in 2 weeks. Her wig was powdered daily but never lifted. The stench, they say, bloomed when she hit the floor. A servant had to cut her out of her corset. She didn't return for days, but when she did, her cheeks were redder than ever. Rouge so thick it cracked when she smiled. No one mentioned her absence. No one dared. Because what matters is not whether you smell sweet, but whether you look like you do. As you undress that night, your maid scrapes a thin layer of goose fat from your collarbone with the back of a comb. It comes off like wax. The scent of rosemary and sweat clings to your shift. She doesn't comment. She never does. She wipes you clean, presses powder into the damp patches, and prepares the rouge again. Because tomorrow you'll need to glow, even if you're rotting underneath. The feast tonight is a sugar banquet. You arrive to find the long table glittering with sculptures, castles made from spun sugar, swans moulded from almond paste, and fruits so glossy you'd swear they'd just been plucked from an orchard, if not for the faintly chemical scent rising from them. This is no ordinary display. It's a performance of wealth. Sugar, after all, is more expensive than meat. In the Tudor court, the paler and more refined the sugar, the higher the status of the one serving it. You glance at the platter nearest to you. Grapes, pomegranates and oranges. None are real. They've been painted with edible gold and scented with rosewater. You're not hungry, but you know better than to refuse. You lift a delicate slice of marzipan and nibble politely. It crumbles instantly, sweet, dry, perfumed, and already you regret it. Your teeth throb. The back molar, the one that's been aching for days, flares up like a coal. You try not to show it. Across the table, Lady Margaret smiles with her lips barely parted. You know why. Her front teeth are blackened, rotted clean through. But no one mocks her. On the contrary, it marks her as rich enough to have ruined her teeth on imported delicacies. There's even a strange fashion growing, smiling with a hint of decay, a mark of indulgence. Sugar-blackened teeth are no longer shameful. They're aspirational. You sip wine to rinse the sweetness. It stings. Badly. Your maid warned you this would happen. Last week she brought a bundle of dried mint and said you should chew it after meals. Cleans the rot, she whispered, but you'd forgotten. Now your gums feel inflamed. You run your tongue along the roof of your mouth and taste iron. The Queen is said to drink clove syrup daily, not for pleasure, but to mask the pain. Her back molars, they say, were removed years ago. There's talk of her having tiny golden caps to cover the gaps. Some even say she had teeth carved from ivory, but no one knows for sure. No one dares ask. At court, when your teeth begin to darken, you don't see a dentist. You call a painter. He arrives in the evening discreetly. He brings a small pot of soot mixed with oil and egg white. You open your mouth, and he brushes it carefully across your teeth, shaping shadows. One stroke to dull the white, another to blacken the gums just enough. The idea is not to seem ill, but to seem sweet. You tried it once. The sensation was unbearable. The oil clung to your tongue, and the bitterness lingered for hours. But it worked. No one asked questions. One lady even complimented your fine-tasting confection. You didn't correct her. In fact, you nodded. Now you press your lips together gently and smile with just enough restraint to hide the truth. You haven't bitten into anything solid in days. Your jaw aches. Your molars feel loose. You chew with the front teeth only and pray they hold. Your maid has taken to leaving sage leaves beside your bed. For chewing, she says, pulls the poison from the gums. You try them. The taste is bitter, earthy, but it helps, a little. Still, every sweet bite brings dread. But to refuse the sugar is worse, because here, sweetness is status, and pain is the price. You wake before dawn with your mouth pulsing. The pain is no longer subtle. It radiates from your upper jaw to your temple, stabbing in rhythm with your heartbeat. Your breath tastes sour. When you sit up, you feel it. Your right cheek is slightly swollen. Your maid notices instantly. She doesn't comment. She simply lights the candle, fetches a cold cloth and presses it to your face. "The banquet took its toll," she murmurs. You nod, barely. She opens a tiny pewter box and withdraws a sliver of clove root. "Hold it in your cheek," she says. "Don't swallow, just let it burn." The sting is sharp, almost chemical, but it numbs the pain for a moment. You keep still, staring into the mirror at your reflection. One side of your face glows with powder and rose. The other puffs faintly, as if you've been slapped. Later that morning, you're expected at the Queen's reading circle. You cannot be absent. Appearance is everything. Presence is currency. So the solution, as always, is disguise. Your maid opens the rouge pot, not for your cheeks, but for your gums. She dabs it in carefully, painting the inside of your upper lip with a soft pink. It masks the bruised colour beneath. Then she dusts your cheek with rice powder and pearl dust to dull the swelling. Lastly, she hands you a thin strip of pressed linen. "Tuck it between your teeth," she instructs. "It'll stiffen your smile, keep you from wincing." You obey. At court, you've learned that beauty is not about comfort. It's about choreography. You practice the smile in the mirror. Closed lips, no teeth, gentle dimples. It passes. When you arrive in the Queen's chamber, Lady Fitzroy leans close and whispers, "Your skin looks flawless this morning." You bow your head in thanks, the linen tucked behind your lips soaking up blood. Across the room, a girl from the countryside is trying to chew a candied rose. Her expression falters, just briefly, as she realizes her tooth has cracked. You see the wince. So does everyone else. There's a pause, the kind that spreads like ripples in a pond. Then someone laughs, brightly, sharply, and the music of conversation resumes. The girl does not return the next day. You begin noticing the quiet absences more often. Lady Weston, who once smiled too broadly. Lady Blanche, who insisted on using honey instead of wine to rinse. Lady Wellesley, who never once touched sugar, but refused to paint her teeth when they began to yellow. "If they can't accept what's real," she once said, "then let them look away." They did, and now she's gone. You sit stiffly beside the fire, letting the linen fall loose behind your lips as the clove root turns soft. You can feel the outline of the swelling now, firm as a coin pressed beneath the skin. Your maid offers a thin rinse of myrrh and vinegar that night. You swish it, grimace, and spit into the basin. "Should I summon the barber surgeon?" she asks. You shake your head. You already know what he'll do, and you're not ready to lose the tooth. Not yet. Instead, you take the soot brush and paint the black along your gums yourself. The line is wobbly, a little too dark, but it's better than letting anyone see the truth. The next day, you'll smile again, just a little softer, and you'll eat nothing. Because here, beauty doesn't just cost pain. Sometimes it costs your smile. They call it the rose mask, but it's not made of roses. It's made of desperation. You're in your chamber late again, seated by the hearth, chin lifted, as your maid applies the mixture in thin, careful strokes. It begins with powdered pearl, ground fine as flour, and crushed coral mixed with almond oil. Then, over that, a smoother layer blended from rose petals, lead white, and vinegar. The scent is soft, almost sweet. The sting comes later. You know why you're doing it. Because the spots have returned. Just beneath your right cheekbone, a faint rash bloomed overnight, raised, pink, persistent. You noticed it while dressing and froze. A mark like that could mean whispers. Whispers mean scrutiny. And scrutiny in this court can end you. Your maid didn't speak when she saw it. She simply reached for the jar. The powder sets like plaster. It hides everything. That's what it's meant to do. You've heard the term tossed around in jest by the men, pox paint. The way some women at court use powder to disguise signs of illness, often the dreaded smallpox, or worse. No one speaks directly of it, of course, but you've noticed. A lady vanishes for a week, then returns looking slightly changed, cheeks higher, eyes wider, as if she's trying to redirect your gaze. Her paint is thicker, her sleeves longer. You once heard a handmaid say, "The court favours perfection, not proof of survival." The Queen knows this better than anyone. Everyone says Her Majesty's signature look, white as parchment, sharp as bone, began after her illness. She recovered, but her face bore the memory, and so she erased it, with powder, with paint, with presence. Now you do the same. Your maid finishes applying the mask. It dries quickly, forming a smooth shell. You dare not smile. A crack would give it away. Later, at supper, you sit near the fire to stay in soft light. A little distance blurs imperfections. Across from you, Lady Rawlins gestures too widely, and her sleeve slips. You catch a glimpse, something red and raised near her wrist, hastily dabbed with powder. She adjusts quickly, laughing too loudly. You say nothing. You sip wine and keep your head turned slightly, hiding your right cheek. The painted mask holds. After the meal, a gentleman compliments your skin. "Like alabaster," he says. You nod demurely, the mask unshifting, but under the paint the rash has begun to itch. Violently, you dare not touch it. That night your maid scrapes the mask away with a warm cloth. Bits of it cling like eggshell to your face. When the skin is finally bare, the rash is angry, inflamed. Worse. "Shall I apply the balm?" she asks. You hesitate. Because the balm, made of crushed chamomile and lard, soothes, yes, but it smells foul, and it will linger into tomorrow. You shake your head. "Just vinegar," you whisper. She doesn't question it. The rag burns as it passes over your cheek. You bite your lip. She dries the skin, then presses a kiss to your forehead, soft like a mother might. "It'll fade by morning," she lies, and you let her, because you need to believe it, because if it doesn't, tomorrow will be worse, and the mask will have to be thicker. You wake before dawn and reach instinctively for the mirror. The rash is still there, angrier now, redder, spreading slightly across your cheek like a creeping vine. You resist the urge to touch it. Bare skin under fingernails is how rumours start. The maid arrives moments later, carrying a fresh bowl of vinegar water and a jar of dried ground rose petals. You meet her eyes without speaking. You both understand what comes next. "Not the full mask today," she says gently. "Only a veil." The veil is lighter than the rose mask, but still thick. It contains powdered calamine, pearl, and a touch of lye soap shaved into dust. It blurs more than it hides, which is enough, so long as you don't let anyone get too close. She applies it slowly, careful not to pull the skin. Your face tingles beneath the brush. You hold your breath when the powder touches the worst of the rash. It stings, hard. "You'll need to keep to the edge of the room," she whispers. "No direct sunlight." You nod. It's a strategy now. You arrive late to the gathering in the privy chamber. The others are already there, seated in soft chairs around the hearth, exchanging gossip and favours. You move deliberately, slowly, choosing the chair nearest the shadows. You smile without showing your teeth. You speak without turning your head too sharply. You're becoming quite skilled at this. Lady Fitzroy leans close and murmurs something about the new ambassador's boots. You chuckle softly, as expected, but her eyes linger on your cheek, just for a second. She says nothing. Not yet. Later, in the corridor, you hear it. "Something's off with her paint today," a voice says, low but sharp. "She's been covering something," another replies. Too much rose, too matte. You keep walking, because that's all you can do. By the time you return to your chamber, your skin is screaming. The mask has dried into a stiff crust. When the maid tries to wipe it clean, flakes fall into the basin like snow. Beneath, the rash is blistered now. You wince when the cloth touches it. "We'll need to lance it soon," she says, her voice unusually stern. "It's not going away." You shake your head. "Not until after tomorrow," you whisper. "I need one more day." Tomorrow is the Queen's appearance before Parliament. You must be there, unblemished, presentable, part of the display. The maid says nothing more. She leaves the cloth on your cheek, cool and soaked in chamomile. You lie back and close your eyes. In the silence, you think of Lady Martha, who once had a boil on her chin and tried to cover it with beeswax and flour. The wax melted under the hall's torches, slid down her neck like candle drippings. She didn't return for weeks. When she did, no one mentioned it, but she was seated farther from the Queen, and her laughter never quite recovered. You drift into sleep, cheek burning, dreamless. When you wake hours later, the pain has settled into a throb. You rise, walk to the mirror and examine the damage, and then, with steady hands, you begin to powder again. Because the court does not wait for healing, it only waits for perfection. You smell her before you see her. Lady Cecily enters the gallery draped in silk and the scent of clove, civet and something else. Something darker, muskier, almost damp. A ripple of reaction passes through the nearby ladies. Not outright revulsion, no. Just the subtle lean away. The brief flutter of a fan. You recognize it immediately. Ambergris. It's expensive. Nearly priceless. Said to come from deep inside the stomach of a whale, formed over years and hardened by sea and salt and time. Sailors call it floating gold. At court it's known as power in a bottle. Lady Cecily wears too much of it. As she passes, the scent clings like fog, heavy, ancient. You hold your breath until she's out of range. Across the chamber, another lady dabs her wrist with orange blossom and mutters under her breath. Savage. But you're not innocent in this war either. You've got your own arsenal. In the drawer of your vanity lies a small pouch of herbs and resins. Benzoin, crushed lavender, cinnamon bark, dried orange peels, and a thick blob of pine sap. Your maid burns them gently over coals each morning, wafting the smoke around your gowns and undergarments. The scent clings, subtle but persistent. It's not about smelling sweet. Not really. It's about domination. In a room full of noble women, your scent must arrive before you do, and linger after you leave, like a calling card, like a claim. Some ladies favour spice, others floral. A few, the brave ones, dab behind their ears with tinctures of civet or musk harvested from the glands of animals, distilled, aged and cut with wine. The smell is overwhelming. But it says something. I can afford this. I can survive this. And then there are the secret scents. You once saw a small vial traded from gloved hand to gloved hand in the rose garden. The girl who received it wore it to supper that night. The room was thick with the scent of violets. Yes, but also something else, something metallic. Rumour said it was a drop of her own blood, mixed with wine and steeped with rose petals. Fools, men, someone whispered. Makes them follow. It worked. She was proposed to within a week. You still don't know what was in that vial, but you remember. Today your maid opens a new jar. It's labelled only with a slash of red wax. Inside is a resinous paste, dark and gleaming. The scent is warm, spiced wine and dried herbs, but there's a hint of something strange, almost bitter. She dabs it along your collarbone, under your jaw, and between your breasts. New from the apothecary, she says, imported, not entirely legal. You don't ask, because you're already watching the reaction. At court that afternoon, heads turn when you pass, not for your gown, not for your hair, but for the scent that trails behind you like smoke. Lady Fitzroy narrows her eyes. Interesting, she says. You curtsy. The ambassador's son lingers a moment too long as he bows. You smile. It's working. But later, after supper, the headache begins. Not a sharp one, but dull and persistent, like the echo of a bell behind your eyes. You press your fingers to your temples and find them slightly warm. The scent is still on you, stronger now, as if it's seeping into your skin. You wonder what's in that jar. You wonder what it's doing beneath your flesh. But tomorrow you'll wear it again, because power isn't always sweet. Sometimes it smells like danger. The jar stays on your vanity. You don't touch it the next morning, not right away. Instead, you choose a milder scent, a blend of lavender, orange peel, and beeswax, gentler on the senses. But as you step into the gallery, something feels off. The room is thick with unfamiliar perfumes. You recognize a new undertone, burnt clove, myrrh, and something acrid that curls behind your nostrils. It's as if everyone has upped their game overnight. Lady Cecily is already there. Today she's swapped ambergris for galbanum, a sharp green resin that cuts through the air like a blade. Lady Eleanor floats past in a fog of spikenard and civet. A younger courtier you barely know trails something medicinal and biting, like crushed rue and sour wine. It's a war, and you've shown up unarmed. The ambassador's son, who lingered too long yesterday, passes you without pause, doesn't even blink. Your scent, once unmistakable, has been swallowed by stronger, stranger brews. You feel invisible. Back in your chamber you stare at the dark jar. Your maid hovers. I can mix something new, she offers, but your fingers are already moving. You open it. It smells stronger now, spiced, heady, and just on the edge of rot. The sweetness has gone bitter, like fruit left too long in the sun. Your pulse skips. Still, you dip your fingers in, just a little. This time, you apply it yourself, along your throat, the insides of your wrists, the hollow above your chest. The heat of your skin brings it alive. It blooms, powerful, dangerous, not pleasant, but unforgettable. You return to court in the afternoon, and the effect is immediate. Conversations pause mid-word. Fans twitch open. The Queen's own steward stumbles slightly as you pass. You see Lady Fitzroy raise her brows. Her eyes dart toward the Queen's dais, calculating. Because your scent is louder now, bolder, too bold. At supper, no one sits within a foot of you, and yet no one speaks of it. This is the paradox. Too sweet, and you're dismissed as childish. Too soft, and you're forgettable. Too sharp, and you're feared, but remembered. And sometimes being remembered is the only safety. That night your skin burns faintly where the paste was applied. You dab with cool linen, but the heat lingers. You sleep fitfully, your dreams vivid and strange. In one, you're walking the length of the gallery, but everyone has no face, only clouds of scent trailing behind them like smoke from unseen fires. You wake dizzy. The maid notices. Perhaps we stop for a day, she says. Let the skin rest. You consider it, then shake your head. No, you murmur. They noticed me. And that's what matters, because scent isn't just presence here, it's possession. Who claims the air claims the attention. And attention in this court is everything, even if it costs you your breath. You're standing in front of the mirror again, but this time the reflection fights back. The glass is fogged with breath. Yours, still warm from the rush up the stairs. The gown weighs heavy on your hips, the corset tighter than usual. The paste scent still clings to your collarbone, but tonight's performance requires more than fragrance or rouge. It requires a face, and not just any face, a flawless one. Your maid brings the tools wrapped in cloth, powdered tin, chalk, rose water, and something else, a small flask sealed with wax. She opens it carefully. The scent is metallic and sharp. You know it without needing to ask. Mercury. The mix is meant for mirrors, not faces. But you're not making a face. You're making a surface, a reflection, something others can look at and see exactly what they expect. She dips the edge of a cloth into the mixture and begins polishing the burnished plate on your table. This is not glass. It's polished tin alloy, coated with a layer of mercury to sharpen the reflection. Imported, rare. But here at court, everyone has one. Or rather, everyone needs one. Because only in this mirror will you know if the illusion holds. She hands it to you, careful not to smudge the edges. You stare. Your reflection shimmers back, smooth and pale. The paint hides the swelling beneath your eye, the faint split at the edge of your lip. Your eyes are wide, belladonna doing its slow, poisonous work, and your cheeks flushed with crushed beetroot and brick powder. The lashes are rigid with resin, like tiny black fans. You don't look human, you look royal, and that's the goal. But your eyes sting. The mercury isn't supposed to be used this way. Prolonged exposure, just polishing, just being near the mirror for hours, brings headaches, tremors, a strange taste in the mouth, like copper. You've heard rumours of ladies whose hands began to shake too much to apply their own powder. One who saw phantom spots drifting before her vision. Another who claimed the mirror whispered to her, called her by her childhood name, the one she'd buried under layers of silk and lead. You're not there, not yet. But sometimes you hear things too, not voices, not words, just a low hum, like a kettle on the boil, just beneath thought. Still, you hold the mirror up, you watch yourself breathe, you adjust the tilt of your head, practice the smile again, not too wide, not too closed, just enough to show the illusion of ease, because tonight the Queen will walk the length of the hall, and she will look, she will see. And if she sees imperfection, an uneven patch, a shimmer of sweat, a spot of skin showing through, there will be consequences, subtle, slow, but real. Lady Cecily used the wrong lip stain last month. She's not been seated near the Queen since. Lady Mirabelle applied too much soot to her brow arch. Her name hasn't appeared in the rota for chamber duties in weeks. You have one chance. The maid stands back. She nods. You rise. As you step toward the door, you catch your reflection once more. The mirror wavers slightly, the mercury distorting at the edge, and for one flickering second, you don't recognize yourself. Not fully, but that's all right, because the woman in the mirror is the one the court wants, and tonight, that's all you need to be. The great hall glows with candlelight. Hundreds of flames flicker across silver platters and mirrored sconces, bouncing off gowns and gilded ruffs, making the entire room shimmer like a dream caught halfway between gold and shadow. You stand among them, another glinting figure in a sea of performances, perfect, poised, unreadable. And then the Queen enters. Her presence is thunder in silence. She wears white again tonight, her signature. Her face is powdered so finely it reflects the light like porcelain. Her hair, curled and pinned beneath a lace coif, glows with its own strange lustre. No one speaks as she walks. They just watch. They always do. She moves slowly, deliberately, pausing now and then to glance at a sleeve, a pendant, a bow arranged just so. Every lady holds her breath. A single misstep, a wilted rose, a smudged lip, a wrinkle in a cuff, and you might find yourself seated beside the hearth next week, far from the dais. You press your shoulders back, drawing your breath as best you can through the corset's grip. Your skin is tingling again from the powder, but you dare not blink too fast. The mirror this afternoon told you the look was perfect. You must trust that now. She passes you, and she pauses. Her gaze flicks, just for a breath, over your gown, your face, the parting of your hair. Her eyes narrow slightly, not in disapproval, but in thought. Her lips twitch, not quite a smile, not quite anything. And then she moves on. Your knees feel hollow. You don't move until the warmth of conversation returns. Later that evening, you find yourself seated beside Lady Blanche. She leans in and murmurs, "She noticed you." You shake your head. She paused. You say nothing. Because what could you say? That for a moment the most powerful woman in England looked at you and did not frown? That your reflection held? That night, back in your chamber, you remove the paint slowly. The powder has crusted faintly at the edge of your jaw. Your maid dabs warm cloth to your skin, careful not to rub. The mirror stands nearby, untouched. "She looked at you," your maid whispers, echoing the words. "She did," you say. But your voice wavers, because now the stakes have changed. You've been seen, which means you must be seen again, and again, and again. The next day, you spend more time before the mirror. You tilt your head at different angles, watching how the mercury light shifts over your cheekbones. You touch the edge of your brow and wonder if it needs to be thinner. You try 3 different lip colours before settling on the one that reflects best under candlelight. You know this because you set a candle beside the mirror and test it yourself. The headache comes sooner today. A pulse behind your eye, a tightness in your jaw. You press a finger to your temple and count to 10. Still, you hold your posture. Because mirrors don't lie, but they do ask for something in return. A little more time, a little more skin, a little more of you. By supper you're ready, and once again you step into the hall, and once again the candles catch you like a promise, and once again you shine. Because now the mirror is not just a tool, it's a rival, and it wants to see who will blink first. It begins with a single missing brow. You notice it one morning halfway through your toilette. The right one, thinner than before, sparser. You tilt your face toward the candlelight and lean in. Yes, definitely thinner. Several hairs are gone entirely, as if plucked in your sleep. You glance at your maid, who's quietly mixing the blush. She hasn't said anything. You don't ask, because you already know. Eyebrows are a fickle thing at court. Yesterday's trend was a soft arch. Last week the Queen appeared with hers scraped nearly bare, an echo of her late mother's style, a whisper of the old Flemish portraits that still hang in the darker corridors of Whitehall. Today the brows must vanish, and yours, it seems, are already obeying. Your maid applies a touch of honey to a strip of linen, then presses it gently beneath your brow. "You'll feel a sting," she murmurs. You nod. She rips. You don't scream. Later she dusts the empty space with a fine mixture of ash and soot, drawn from the bottom of last night's hearth. She uses the tip of a goose quill to etch soft strokes across your skin, thin, delicate arches that curl above your lids like the wings of a bird. "Better than real," she says. You glance in the mirror, and she's not wrong, but you look surprised. Permanently. When you enter the gallery that morning, you're not the only one. Lady Agnes has done hers in dark coal, arched like a crescent moon. Lady Cecily's are entirely erased, her forehead shaved high to meet the fashion. From a distance she resembles a statue. Up close she looks unfinished. You realise with a strange pang that you don't remember what her real brows ever looked like. You sit for embroidery, trying not to sweat. The soot smudges with heat, and your pulse has been fast since breakfast. Still, your stitches are neat, your smile serene. Lady Blanche leans over. They say the Queen paints hers with crushed violet stem, she whispers, to keep the colour sharp. You nod. It wouldn't surprise you. Once you heard she used mouse fur, tiny tufts cut and pasted into arches with tree sap. Another time, walnut ink applied with a silver needle. No one knows what's true. No one dares ask. That evening, back in your chamber, your maid lights the hearth and begins to shave the top of your forehead. Just a little, just a few wisps. A higher brow makes the face longer, she says. It also makes your skull look more exposed. You stare straight ahead. The razor is sharp and each stroke comes with a shiver. She finishes with a rub of camphor oil to keep the skin from rising. You touch your brow bone. It's smooth, bare. You look like someone else. But that's the goal. Because at court, even your expression isn't entirely yours. It belongs to fashion, to the Queen, to the moment. And when the trend changes again, and it will, you'll pluck, paint, or scrape whatever's left. The next morning, your face looks too calm, too bare, too emotionless. The brows are gone now, completely, and what remains is just skin. Pale, powdered, vulnerable. You study yourself in the mirror. Without the gentle frame of hair above your eyes, your expression seems sharper, colder. Every blink feels exaggerated. Every glance a performance. Your maid senses your discomfort. She lifts a small pot filled with soot, walnut ash, and a drop of mutton fat to help it tear. We'll try something new today, she murmurs. A touch of honey black. She dips the tip of a swan feather into the mixture and draws soft curves above each eye. Not too high, not too thin. Just bold enough to speak of confidence without arrogance. The lines are deliberate, almost architectural. She pauses between strokes, assessing like an artist judging a canvas. You watch her as she works. When she steps back, you look again, and you gasp, because for a moment it's not you in the mirror. It's someone older, sharper, more dangerous, and beautiful. Not in a soft way, but in the way a knife glints in candlelight. It unsettles you, and yet you approve. At court, no one comments directly on another woman's brows. That would be vulgar. But their glances linger. Lady Fitzroy stares a fraction too long. Lady Eleanor's lashes flutter in surprise before her lips tighten into a smile. Even the Queen's steward gives you a curious second look as he passes, as if something about your face doesn't quite add up. But that's the beauty of it. You've changed the lines, which means you've changed the rules. At supper, you keep your chin slightly lifted. The fake brows don't move, of course. They can't. So you learn to perform around them, emoting with your lips, your cheekbones, the arch of your neck. It becomes a mask of composure. You don't have to raise your eyebrows to show surprise. You let others do the reacting, and in that stillness you gain power. After the meal you overhear a girl whispering, "She never blinks, does she?" Her friend replies, "No, that's why they notice her." You smile behind your goblet, because you do blink. You've simply trained yourself to do it slowly, like a painting come to life. That night the soot smears as the maid removes it. The oil in the mixture clings to your skin, and you have to scrub harder than usual. Your brow bone is tender, red. A few tiny bumps have appeared where the hair once grew. She applies lavender water and pats it dry. Then she asks, not unkindly, "Will we paint them again tomorrow?" You think of the woman you saw in the mirror this morning. The stranger who looked back with absolute stillness. "Yes," you say. "The same shape." She nods. She starts preparing the pot for the next day, adjusting the ratios. "Honey black," she murmurs again, as if it's a secret recipe. You lie back on the pillow, your bare face tingling slightly in the cool night air. Somewhere in the palace, a lute plays softly. The fire crackles, and Above your empty eyes, phantom brows linger. The performance continues, because once you erase the lines nature gave you, you have no choice but to draw your own. Tonight, you can't sleep. Not because of pain, not even because of fear, but because of the thick, sticky sheen on your face. You lie flat on your back, perfectly still, with your hair bound in linen and your neck resting on a bolster that tilts your head slightly back. Also, you don't ruin the layer of goose fat slathered across your skin. Yes, goose fat, mixed with crushed pearls, a touch of powdered alum, and 2 drops of almond oil. Your maid called it the Venetian glow, but here, in your candlelit chamber, it feels like wearing wax. You try not to breathe too deeply. Don't shift, she'd warned earlier, patting the salve into your temples, or you'll smudge the polish. That word again, polish, as if you're a floorboard or a candlestick. The treatment is meant to restore luminosity, to repair the damage done by powders, rouge, and sunlight. But under your night veil, the fat is already congealing. It tugs faintly at your jaw. The pearl dust crusts at the corner of your mouth. You don't dare move. Instead, you stare up at the ceiling and wait for morning. When it finally comes, the removal is worse. The fat, once soft and warm, has stiffened like old butter. Your maid peels the linen from your skin and scrapes the mixture away with the blunt edge of a silver comb. It flakes off in pale ribbons. Your cheek itches, your temples sting. But beneath it all, your skin does glow. It's eerie, perfect, porcelain, like a doll. You glance in the mirror and barely recognize your own reflection, not because of what's missing, but because of what's been smoothed away. The tiny lines beside your mouth, gone. The freckles on your chin, vanished. Your skin gleams with an unnatural softness, as if it's been ironed. The others notice. Lady Eleanor says nothing, but her gaze lingers a little longer than usual. Lady Mirabelle asks your maid, pointedly, what she's been feeding you. At court, that question is not about food, it's about secrets. You say nothing, because part of the power is the mystery. But behind the scenes, the routine intensifies. Each night the goose fat is mixed with something new, crushed fennel seed for softness, alum to tighten, orbits of pearl dust finer than flour. Once she adds mashed fig to draw out impurities. Another time, stale bread soaked in milk and vinegar. You lie still and let her smear it on. You learn not to twitch when it begins to cool. You train yourself to sleep in short bursts, flat as a corpse, unmoving until dawn. Because if the mixture smears or runs, the whole treatment is lost. You've seen it happen. Lady Blanche once woke up with a streak of crusted paste across her temple. She turned in her sleep, and it left a line that lasted for days. No paint could hide it. She wept in her chamber for hours. Her reflection was shattered. Her confidence fled. She stopped coming to supper for a week. You do not intend to follow her. So when your maid lays the next night's mixture on thick, this time with goose fat, camphor, and a shred of rose petal, you close your eyes, you lie still, and you become the Polish. Your maid calls it a moon mask. Each night the ingredients shift slightly depending on your skin's condition, the weather, the gossip. Goose fat is the base, but everything else is alchemy. One evening it's mixed with barley milk and crushed chamomile. The next rabbit marrow and ground oyster shell. You don't ask how she knows these recipes. You suspect they come from the older maids, passed like scripture behind velvet curtains. You just lie down and let her work, head tilted back, face exposed, waiting to become beautiful again. Because now you've gone too far to stop. The rawness on your cheeks, the tightness behind your ears, these are small prices, manageable. You know worse. You've seen worse. Lady Cecily's face cracked last week, literally. The powder dried too fast, and when she smiled, a thin line split from the corner of her lip to her jaw. The blood didn't show through the paint. but it dripped onto her ruff. 2 maids rushed her from the chamber. She hasn't been seen since. Now everyone smiles with care. You sleep sitting up more often now. Your pillows stay untouched, your night veil stiff with dried pearl dust. The maid brushes flakes off your face in the morning like she's tending old parchment. And still, each morning you wake and polish. It's not only about looking better, it's about staying in the game. You notice the court changing, not just the faces, but the masks. Everyone is smoothing more, powdering longer, applying night salves that smell of vinegar and metal. The new girls show up in raw silk and bare faces, and within weeks their skin gleams like porcelain. But beneath that shimmer, you can always tell who's hurting. A red patch here, a dry spot there. No one dares point it out, but everyone sees. You hear whispers about Lady Agnes. She sleeps with slices of veal on her cheeks now, someone says over supper, eyes darting. Raw, just veal and ribbon, straps it on like armour. Another voice adds, it keeps the skin from wrinkling. A third, barely audible, until it rots. You nod. You've done it too. You remember the cold weight of raw meat against your cheekbone, the way the silk ties dug behind your ears, the way you had to stay absolutely still or the veal would slip. It didn't smell in the morning, not yet. But the idea of it lingered, rot so close to the skin, decay, used to preserve. The irony never escapes you, and yet you'll do it again. Because beneath all the pearl powder and goose fat and polished mirrors lies one truth. Nothing about this beauty is natural. Not the glow, not the smoothness, not the stillness. It's effort, it's exhaustion, it's strategy. And for now, it's working. You're still in the Queen's line of sight, still seated in the warm parts of the room, still invited to speak, however briefly. And when Lady Blanche appears the next morning with a faint blister near her jaw, you simply smile, softly, carefully, because you know what caused it, and you know it won't be her last. It starts with a tiny velvet dot, no larger than a lentil, black, round, placed carefully just beside your lip. You're not covering anything today, no rash, no blister, but the maid insists. It's fashion, she says, as she presses it on with a dab of tree gum. It gives the face mystery. You blink at your reflection. She's not wrong. The patch transforms your expression entirely. Where before your lips looked bare and expressionless, now they seem knowing, as if you're holding back a secret or a warning. Later in the corridor, Lady Eleanor appears with 2 patches, one below her right eye, another beside her temple. She says nothing about them, but when the Queen enters, Eleanor turns her head just so, allowing the candlelight to catch the velvet. A statement, silent, deliberate, and soon everyone follows. The next morning, Lady Fitzroy wears hers at the corner of her mouth. Lady Mirabelle, always theatrical, applies 3 down the curve of her jaw like falling stars. You learn the unspoken code quickly. A patch beside the lip, flirtation, beneath the eye, sorrow or coyness, on the cheekbone, defiance. Some ladies place them strategically, sending silent messages across the chamber. A patch moves from one side of the face to the other, and suddenly a rivalry has ended, or begun. You see eyes tracking patches more than lips. Your maid lays out a new sheet of them on black velvet, each one pre-cut. Stars, hearts, moons, teardrops. You choose a crescent today and place it just above your brow, tilted sideways. A bold choice. You're not entirely sure what it says, but it feels right. That evening a gentleman pauses mid-conversation to look at it. He says nothing. Just stares for a heartbeat too long. Message received. Back in your chamber, you remove the patch gently with warm water. The skin beneath is slightly red. The gum has pulled faintly at the delicate layer of powder and paint beneath, revealing the truth of your skin. Flushed, uneven, human. The illusion has a seam. You reach for the mirror, now part of your nightly ritual. The surface wavers. The mercury backing has begun to tarnish. A faint cloud in the corner distorts your reflection. One eye seems larger than the other. You know it's the mirror. You know, and yet. You tilt your head to match the warping, just to see what it might look like. Your maid returns with a new batch of patches, some dotted with crushed coal, others dusted with silver to catch the light. You ask, "What if I placed one on my temple?" She hesitates. "That's where Lady Margaret wore hers last week." "Exactly," you say. You smile, because now you understand. The patches are not just decoration, they're power. They are speech without sound. And in a world where every word is a risk, every glance a trap, these little velvet dots say more than your lips ever could. You press one into place and step back into the light. The patches multiply. You start seeing them everywhere, on foreheads, at the edge of throats, just above the curve of the collarbone where no blemish could possibly need hiding. They trail down the neck like spilled ink. Some are shaped like crescent moons, others like clovers, even tiny daggers. You catch one girl wearing a velvet heart on her shoulder blade, just visible through a sheer panel of gauze. Scandalous, bold, unforgettable, but there's danger too. When Lady Cecily arrives with a black dot on the bridge of her nose, barely above the space where her brows once were, the room freezes for a second too long. It's not the placement exactly, it's the message. She is saying something sharp, something deliberate, a challenge, perhaps even to the Queen herself. The next morning she's reassigned to the outer chambers. The patches vanish from her face after that. You learn quickly, placement is everything, not just for style, but for survival. Your maid now carries a small leather case with cutouts in 10 standard shapes. She keeps a small chart inside, drawn in charcoal and annotated with handwritten notes. Lip means interest, she says, pointing. Left cheek is loyalty. Temple is ambition. Throat, seduction. You stare at the chart like it's a cipher and begin to plan. One day, you wear a single black star near your left eye. That evening, you're invited to stand closer to the Queen during her address. The next day, you switch to a dot above your brow, and Lady Fitzroy offers you the seat closest to the dais. You start to wonder how much of this is fashion and how much is code. You begin experimenting. One morning, a teardrop patch. That evening, 3 ladies ask if you're unwell. The next day, you try a triangle at your jawline. Silence. But on the 3rd, you place a heart just below your right ear, and a note is slipped into your prayer book, unsigned, offering a walk in the rose garden at dusk. You burn it, of course, but you smile, because now you understand something else. Patches are not for hiding, they are for being seen. One night, while removing your makeup, you hesitate over the patch still stuck to your cheek. You don't want to take it off, not because it's flattering, but because you're afraid of the bare skin beneath. What will be left once the symbols are gone? You peel it away slowly, and for a moment you look at your reflection not with judgment, but with curiosity. The skin is red, yes, a little raw, but it is yours. The face beneath the signals, the body beneath the costume. You breathe, then you reach for a fresh patch, because tomorrow the gallery will be full, and someone else will wear a crescent, or a dagger, and you will need to speak louder, without saying a word. They lace you in tighter than usual today. You feel it before you even sit up, your breath shortened, your ribs tugging against the pull of whalebone and reed. The corset presses into your stomach with the silent authority of a hand that will not let go. Your maid doesn't apologise, she simply tugs again. The Queen's waist was smaller last night, she says, matter of fact. The court took notice. And so, your ribs must shrink. You learned long ago that corsetry isn't just for shape, it's for strategy. A narrow waist signals youth, fertility, control. It says you are worthy to be admired, adorned, and maybe even trusted. The pain is just proof. But today, as you stand to be fastened into your gown, something catches in your side. Not a sharp pain, but a deep one. Like your organs are folding in on themselves. You say nothing. She buttons the bodice, adjusts the shoulder seam, and hands you a lace-trimmed mirror. You smile, but your lips feel faint. Even the act of inhaling tastes thin. The gallery is full by the time you arrive. You're early, but not the first. Several ladies are already seated, corseted so tightly that they appear weightless, barely touching their chairs. You move like one of them, slow, graceful, careful not to twist too far in any direction. Your vision sparkles slightly at the edges. You steady yourself on the chair. Breathe shallowly, Lady Eleanor whispers beside you. Float through it. You nod. Float. That's the word they use. Not collapse, not suffocate. Float. During embroidery, a girl across the room collapses forward. Her head lands in her lap with a soft thud. No one screams. Two maids rush forward already prepared. She's carried out gently, like a doll whose joints have given way. Tea too hot, someone mutters. But you know better. Her waist had vanished yesterday. Everyone had admired it. Too much admiration always carries a cost. Your own ribs ache as you shift in your seat. You wonder, how much narrower can you go? Last month, your maid shaved down the inside of one of your older stays, filing the edges so the boning would press tighter. You didn't ask her to. She just did it, as if she knew you would soon need to be smaller. Everyone does. Later, you step behind the velvet partition in the dressing chamber and exhale. Or try to. The breath comes shallow, hissing between your teeth. Your fingers are numb. Your maid arrives with a vial of rose vinegar. Just hold it under your nose, she says, to keep the room from spinning. It helps, a little. She unties the corset carefully and the pressure releases in stages. The air rushes back into your body like something you hadn't earned. Your stomach expands reflexively, and the pain radiates outward, dull and aching. She touches your side gently. There's bruising. You already know. You felt it blooming during the Queen's toast. She brings a salve of marigold and lard, cool and slick. She presses it along your ribs, then wraps them in soft cloth. You'll rest tonight, she says. You nod. But you both know, tomorrow the waist must be smaller, because the Queen's was smaller still, and the gallery has no room for lungs. Only lines. You sleep on your side that night, wrapped in cloth, ribs aching with every breath. The marigold salve cools the outer layer of skin, but does little for the deeper ache, the soreness that lives beneath bone, behind breath, where no paste can reach. You dream of narrow corridors, of slipping through spaces too tight for your body. When you wake, the ache remains. Still, the corset waits. Your maid hesitates when she picks it up that morning. I could pad the edge, she offers, voice low, or leave 2 eyelets unlaced. But you shake your head. You can't risk it. Today is the procession. The Queen will be present, visible, and every lady in the gallery will be measured, if not in words, then in glances. Lax lacing would be noticed. Your waist must look effortless, ethereal. She begins to tighten. You grip the edge of the table. By the 6th pull, you begin to sweat, not from heat, but from pressure. Your temples throb. Your stomach cramps. But you do not speak. You count each breath. You let your ribs shift. Finally, she ties it off. You turn to the mirror. The bodice is perfect, no gaps, no creases. The waist is smaller than yesterday, half an inch, maybe more. Your silhouette is a whisper. It's hard to move, but movement isn't required. Stillness is more elegant. The gallery is already full when you arrive. Ladies line the walls like carved figurines. No one sits unless absolutely necessary. Seated bodies crease. Standing ones gleam. Lady Fitzroy looks sharper than usual, her bodice laced in an inverted V, drawing the eye to her stomach's unnatural flatness. Lady Eleanor, ever theatrical, wears a velvet sash pulled so tight across her middle that her chest rises like a balcony. You nod at them, lips painted, smile measured. A new girl stumbles as she enters, her corset likely too fresh, her body untrained. She gasps quietly, pressing a hand to her side. No one helps her. She rights herself and moves on. She will learn, or she will leave. As the Queen enters, everyone stills. The rustle of gowns ceases. The air itself tightens. She walks slowly, her waist so narrow that her entire frame looks unreal. Her gown is structured like scaffolding, an architecture of beauty. You realise with a small shudder, she is no longer mimicking youth. She is defying anatomy. Her gaze passes across the room and lands on you, just for a moment, then moves on. But you saw it, and that's enough. The pain no longer matters, not your bruised ribs, not your shallow lungs, not the ache in your hips from standing too long. Because you were seen, and if you were seen, you still belong. Back in your chamber, your maid unlaces you slowly, gently, whispering reassurances as the pressure finally releases. You collapse onto the bed in silence, letting your breath return in waves. Later, she applies comfrey root and wraps your middle in soft wool. She doesn't ask whether you'll wear it again tomorrow. She knows the answer. You always do. Because you no longer shape the corset. The corset shapes you. She arrives at dawn with a pouch, soft leather still damp from the morning dew. Your maid says nothing as she lays it on the table beside the basin. You've seen this pouch before, once, in Lady Eleanor's chamber, when she was recovering from the vapours, and once passed quietly between two housemaids behind the stairs, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. You know what's inside before she opens it. Leeches. 4 of them, small and dark, sluggish from the chill but very much alive. Your maid speaks softly. Just for balance. You've been faint. You have. The corset, the perfume, the powdered lead and pearl. Your body has grown slow beneath the paint, your limbs heavy, your sleep shallow and full of sparks behind your eyes. The last time you stood from the embroidery stool, you saw black for a full 5 seconds. No one noticed. You think. She lifts one leech gently with a silver spoon and places it into a small cup of warm water. It begins to stir. They're clean, she says. They'll feed fast. You say nothing. You hold out your arm. She binds above your elbow with a strip of linen and dabs the inside of your elbow with a cloth soaked in lavender. They say lavender makes the blood calmer, she adds, almost to herself. Then she places the leech. The sensation is strange. Pinching, then tugging, then nothing. A gentle pull, a sip, a sensation like losing your breath slowly through the skin. They used to bleed the Queen once a month, she says, to keep her colour pale and the balance of humours. You nod. The same reason women here drink powdered pearl in warm wine or sleep under meat masks. Balance, purity, an absence of corruption. Another leech is placed behind your knee. You lie back on the chaise, hands folded, as your blood leaves you in slow, invisible threads. You feel a little lighter, a little hollow. After 20 minutes, your maid removes the leeches, plump now, gleaming. She drops them into a clay jar and corks the lid. The bleeding continues a moment longer. She binds your arm. "You'll look softer today," she says. You do. Your face in the mirror appears less flushed. Your eyes, larger somehow, less tired. There's a slight shimmer on your skin, not from paint, but from the absence of something. You look calmer, but you also feel colder. Your legs shake as you rise. Later at court you move slower, but no one questions it. They see the paleness in your cheeks, the softness in your voice. They assume refinement. No one suspects leeches. You overhear another girl asking for them. Quietly. "She's getting blotchy," she says, "and faint in the chapel. She heard it helped, that it drew out bad heat." That's the phrase they use. Bad heat. As if the sickness comes from within, and beauty is a process of extracting it. By any means. That evening your maid opens the pouch again. "Only 2 tonight," she says. "You're already balanced." You nod and let them feed. Because the blood may be yours, but the beauty belongs to the court. You wake in the night to a faint throbbing in your elbow. Not pain, just awareness. A pulsing hollowness beneath the bandage where the leech had fed hours before. You sit up slowly, bones heavy and slow, and pull the linen aside. A faint red smear has soaked through the cloth. The wound is still weeping. Your maid is asleep by the hearth, curled on a stool with her head against her arm. You don't wake her. You tiptoe toward the basin and wash your arm gently with cold rose water. The scent masks the metallic tang. The bleeding slows, but it doesn't stop. You press a pad of cotton to the wound and sit by the fire, watching the embers breathe in silence. Your thoughts wander, not to the leeches or the paint or the corset, but to something deeper, a question. How much of you has already been given, and how much more will be asked? By morning you're paler than usual, beautifully so, the kind of pallor that inspires poetry. Moonlit skin, they call it, lily white. The bruised edges beneath your eyes add to the effect. You say nothing. You let them believe it's intentional. That afternoon, Lady Fitzroy approaches. She doesn't speak right away. She just watches you as your maid reapplies powder over the fading bite on your neck. "I saw the pouch," she says softly. "In your chamber. You're using them often." You don't deny it. "They help," you reply. She nods. Her own skin is luminous today, almost too pale. You wonder if she's done the same. You wonder if everyone has. "Be careful," she says. Too much, and you start to fade, not just in the face. Then she's gone. That night you don't bleed. Your maid prepares the pouch, but you shake your head. "No," you whisper. "Not tonight." She doesn't argue, just nods and sets it aside. Instead, she brings warm cloths, gently dabs the old wounds, and wraps your arms in wool. She mixes a salve of calendula and goose grease to soothe the skin, muttering something about balance. Always balance, but you feel strange, weightless, like part of you isn't quite in the room. At supper, the fire feels too warm, the noise too loud. You keep your hands folded, your back straight, but everything echoes faintly, like you're watching the banquet from behind a thick pane of glass. When Lady Eleanor laughs, it takes you a moment to smile. You pass a mirror later and glance by instinct, but your reflection surprises you. You're there, painted, powdered, perfect, but distant, pale to the edge of transparency. The shimmer of sweat at your temple is the only sign you're still truly alive. You lean closer. The skin beneath your eyes has begun to hollow. Just slightly. You blink and step away. Back in your chamber, the pouch sits on the vanity. The leeches shift faintly inside, sensing your warmth. You do not touch it, but you do not throw it away. Because you know, one day soon, the colour will return, and when it does, they'll tell you you're too pink, too flushed, too alive, and you'll open the pouch again without hesitation. The lip stain arrives in a porcelain pot no bigger than a coin. It's heavier than it should be, cold to the touch. Your maid sets it on the table without ceremony, but you notice the way her fingers linger just a moment too long on the lid. "This one lasts," she says, "through wine, through heat, through kisses." You lift the lid. Inside, the colour is deep, too deep. Not the cheerful red of crushed berries or beetroot, but something darker. Blue-red, almost bruised. It gleams faintly, even in shadow. "Cinnabar," your maid adds quietly, "with balm." You know that word. Everyone does. Mercury sulfide, used by painters, alchemists, physicians who promise too much. It gives the lips a vivid colour no natural stain can match. And it clings. Oh, how it clings! You hesitate, only a breath, then you dip the brush. The stain goes on, cool and silky, spreading easily across your lips. At first it tingles, just a faint warmth. Then a sharper sensation follows, like a spark catching beneath the skin. You press your lips together gently as instructed. The colour sets almost instantly. In the mirror the effect is startling. Your mouth looks fuller, sharper, alive in a way the rest of your face is not. Against the pale powder and hollowed cheeks the red looks dangerous, commanding, impossible to ignore. "That's better," your maid says. "Now you won't disappear." At court the reaction is immediate. Lady Mirabelle pauses mid-sentence when she sees you. A gentleman's gaze drops, not to your eyes, not to your gown, but to your mouth. He looks away quickly, embarrassed. You taste metal. It's faint at first, barely there. But once you notice it, you can't forget it. Copper and bitterness, just behind the sweetness of the balm. At supper, the stain holds perfectly. Wine beads and slides away. Bread leaves no mark. You don't need to reapply. Others do, fussing with berry pastes and cloths, but you sit still, serene. You hear a whisper behind you. That shade is fatal. You smile. Later in the withdrawing room, Lady Eleanor leans close. "Careful," she murmurs. "That one eats more than it gives." You nod politely. But when you return to your chamber and remove the paint, the stain doesn't fully come away. Even after oil, even after scrubbing, your lips remain faintly red, as if blushed from within. The tingling persists. By morning the corners of your mouth are sore. A thin crack has formed at the edge of your lower lip. Your maid applies honey and balm, careful not to touch the raw skin too much. "It's just settling," she says. "It always does." You believe her. You want to believe her. Because the colour, still there, still vivid, is beautiful. And once again, beauty has asked for something small. Just a little skin. Just a little blood. Just a little time. The second pot comes in a silver case. Gifted, apparently. No note, just a ribbon, and the subtle implication that someone important has noticed. Your new shade, and approves. Your maid lifts it like an offering. "It's the same formula," she says, "but with balm of bee and a touch of resin." You already know what that means. Stronger. You unscrew the lid and the scent rises immediately. Sweet and sharp, like honey burned on hot iron. The red inside is even deeper than before, so dark it borders on black. The brush trembles slightly as you dip it in. You steady your hand and apply it carefully, tracing the line of your lips with precision. The colour sinks in fast, pulling at the skin as it dries. This time the sting comes quicker. A bite. Not unbearable, but insistent. Your reflection watches without blinking. At court the colour does its work. Lady Fitzroy eyes you as you pass. Lady Blanche raises her goblet with a smirk. Someone whispers that the shade matches the Queen's own when she met the Spanish envoy. Not the colour of seduction, but of control, of declaration. By now the taste of metal no longer surprises you. nor does the pressure building beneath the skin of your lower lip. When you smile, it tightens. When you drink, it burns. Still, you smile. Still, you drink. Back in your chamber that night, the mirror tells the truth. Your lips have darkened at the edges, not from stain, but from bruising. A faint purple shadow gathers where the colour always sits. You try to wipe it away. It won't move. You press a cloth soaked in oil against your mouth, but the pigment has sunk too deep. Your maid notices. She says nothing, but begins grinding a balm from beeswax and cucumber pulp. She pats it gently onto your mouth. "It happens," she whispers, "to everyone, the first time they don't stop." You close your eyes, because she's right. You didn't stop. You wanted to be seen. Now you can't be unseen. You wear the stain again the next day, and the next. Each morning it takes longer for your lips to soften. Each night more skin peels away with the paint. But the glances remain, the silence when you enter, the weight of attention settling on your mouth like a crown. Lady Eleanor asks if it hurts. You lie. No, not at all. Because at court no one bleeds openly. They just wear the wounds beautifully. You begin to notice things, how every woman bites the inside of her cheek before entering a room, drawing blood for colour. How lip balm is passed like coin among the maids. How one lady no longer speaks above a whisper. Not from modesty, but because her lips have cracked too deeply to move. You try not to imagine what yours look like beneath the stain. Eventually you stop removing it at all. Let it layer. Let it build. Let it become a second skin. Because some beauties cannot be painted. They must be earned. And some poisons do not kill quickly. They charm you first. The room smells like vinegar and crushed violets. You sit with your hands outstretched, fingers held steady as your maid unwraps the gauze from your right hand. The nails underneath glisten faintly, rosy, delicate, precise. But the skin around the cuticles is raw. "They'll be fine," she says. "It only stings at first." She dips a cloth into a steaming bowl. The scent of vinegar and alum rises sharply. You flinch as she dabs your fingertips, just once, just enough to seal the bleeding where the quick was scraped a bit too close. The Tudors do not believe in dirty hands, but nor do they believe in plain ones, and so begins your induction into the most secretive rite of all, the hands. Because while the face may be powdered, the lips stained, and the hair arranged in impossible swirls, it is the hands that give you away. They tremble, they sweat, they betray fatigue, which is why they must be trained like dancers. You wear thin kidskin gloves every night, stuffed with paste, a mix of lemon peel, crushed pearl and orris root. They stink. But the result is silkier skin and over time bleached knuckles, a sign of leisure. You're not allowed to carry coal or draw back curtains with bare hands anymore. Your maid insists on doing it, even when it's ridiculous. Once, she scolded you for lifting a candlestick. "You'll thicken the thumb," she said, "and ruin the taper." At meals, you hold your goblet just so, fingers lightly arched. Even the gesture is rehearsed. You're told your nails must be short and oiled, but never cut too square. You're told the fingertips must not pinken with cold. That's why the fire is always too close in winter. One of the ladies, Lady Alice, has fingers like porcelain spoons, thin, bent slightly inward. You once thought they were a result of illness. Now you know better. She was trained to hold everything with 2 fingers. Over years, her bones adjusted. They call it the swan's fold. You practice at night, picking up marbles with your pinky and ring finger, painting letters in the air with an unbent wrist, squeezing a cloth soaked in rosewater until your palm cramps. For what? For a glance. For the way someone says elegant with surprise in their voice, and most of all for protection. Because in the Tudor court, the moment someone sees your hangnail, they assume more. that you're careless, untrained, not worthy of invitation. Lady Fitzroy once whispered that Anne Boleyn had 6 fingers. You don't know if it's true, but everyone seems to believe it, and no one asks how many she used to write letters to the king. Some mornings, you wake with your fist clenched. The gloves are still on, damp from the paste, edges crimped where your skin tried to breathe. You flex your fingers slowly, waiting for sensation to return. Sometimes it tingles, sometimes it burns, but the skin is soft, so terribly perfectly soft. Your maid removes the gloves gently and checks each nail. She applies a fresh coat of balm, rosewater, almond oil, and a pinch of white lead for brightness. You notice your thumb has begun to curve oddly at the joint. She doesn't comment, just moves to the next finger. There are worse things than crooked bones. You learn that quickly when you spot Lady Cecily's hands under candlelight. One finger is mottled purple-blue. She tries to hide it beneath her sleeve, but the discoloration blooms upward like rot. You hear the other girls whisper, "Frostbite," from a misjudged winter ride. She should have worn her balm gloves. She isn't invited to play the virginal anymore. Too unpleasant to watch. And hands, after all, are meant to be watched. That's why cards are played with long fingers, why embroidery hoops are displayed like trophies, and why every cup is held in a way that elongates the wrist. Not because it's easy, because it's beautiful. You begin to use your hands more deliberately, to convey what your words cannot. A brush of the fingertips to feign curiosity, a slow tightening of the napkin to show disapproval. When your hand lingers too long on the shoulder of a dancing partner, you know the effect. That single touch carries meaning. Once you fold a letter in 4 and seal it with your thumbnail. The wax accepts the mark cleanly, and you realise with strange pride that your nail beds have become that strong. But strength comes at a cost. Your joints ache more now. You pretend it's nothing. You tell yourself it's only the weather, until the day you can no longer clasp your hands without feeling something grind. Lady Blanche notices. She recommends an ointment from her apothecary. Something for ladies whose fingers forget their place. You laugh with her. But at night you soak your hands in hot milk and lavender oil, hoping they'll remember how to move again by morning, because tomorrow you must pick up a fan, and everyone will be watching. They won't see the splint hidden beneath your glove. They won't hear the crack when you raise the goblet. They'll just see grace, poise, ease, as they're meant to. And so your hands remain, silent messengers of 100 little deceptions, every twitch rehearsed, every gesture coated in meaning. By now, they barely feel like yours, but they are admired, and sometimes that's enough. The wig arrives in a lacquered box lined with crushed velvet. Not that you asked for one. Your own hair is still thick, still long enough to be styled, but you've noticed lately that the other ladies wear theirs higher, fuller, impossibly glossy. Hair that seems untouched by candle smoke or damp chambers, hair that behaves, and so, when the box appears on your table, you know it's time. Your maid opens it reverently. Inside rests a confection of auburn curls, arranged in stiff waves and bound together at the base with golden ribbon. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. Spanish silk, she murmurs, blended with horsehair for strength. You run your fingers over it. It's cold. It doesn't smell like anything at all. Wearing it feels strange at first. Your real hair must be flattened beneath a linen cap, bound tight across your scalp so nothing shows. The wig pins bite, anchoring the weight above your forehead. It feels like a crown, but heavier, less noble, more necessary. When you turn your head, it lags half a second behind, but in the mirror, you see a different woman, older, sharper, wiser. At court, no one mentions it directly, but you catch the flicker of recognition in their eyes, the silent nod that you've joined the next circle. You've ascended from girl to lady, because in Tudor England, a true court woman masters disguise, and hair is part of the illusion. The wigs are made by hand in small rooms behind the kitchens, where two women knot strands into netting by candlelight. The finest ones, they say, are stiffened with bread paste and urine, odd alchemy that keeps the hair from sagging in heat. A sour scent clings to them faintly, no matter how much rose oil is added. Lady Eleanor says hers was made from the hair of an Italian nun who died of heartbreak. Lady Blanche swears hers is part deer pelt, to make it glossy in firelight. None of you know if any of it's true, but the myths give power to the thing, so you pass them along like charms. Your first wig is modest, shoulder length, with two curled horns at the brow. But you see what's coming. Already, Lady Fitzroy wears one that towers a full hand above her head, threaded with beads and gold wire. She turns slowly now, to keep her balance. It makes her look important. It also gives her headaches. She keeps vinegar rags by her bed to ease the weight. You begin planning your second wig before the month is out. This one, perhaps, will be flame red, or streaked with blonde like Queen Elizabeth's. There's a rumour that the Queen has over 80 wigs, each one named and numbered like a horse in a stable. You believe it, because once you wear one, it's hard to go back. Your real hair begins to look too soft, too dull, too real, and reality, as you've learned, has no place in a portrait. The second wig doesn't arrive in a box. It's carried in by a man with a limp and eyes like gooseberries. He bows low and presents it on a padded board, draped in black, silk. A gift, he says, from an admirer of your recent appearance at Lord Hunsdon's feast. You don't ask who. You don't need to. The wig is unlike anything you've seen. It's auburn, yes, but streaked with threads of gold and copper wire, woven so finely you'd mistake them for sunlight. The hair is coarser than your last one. When you touch it, you realise it's not human. Horse, perhaps, or something stranger. The structure is intricate. 3-tiered rolls stacked atop one another like pastry with a fan-like shell at the back. It's absurd, it's glorious. It's impossible to wear without assistance. It takes your maid and one of the scullery girls to secure it. They sew it to the linen cap underneath with thread that bites into your scalp. The entire thing pulls your skin so tight that you look permanently surprised. But when they finish, and you look in the mirror, you no longer look like someone who could be ignored. At dinner, heads turn. Even the men glance up, not with desire necessarily, but with calculation. A headpiece like this signals wealth, favour, connection, the kind of details that matter more than conversation. Lady Blanche corners you later with narrowed eyes. "I heard that style was forbidden by the Queen," she says softly, sipping from her cup. You smile. "Then I suppose I'll have to remove it. Eventually." Because of course it's a copy. Everyone knows Her Majesty debuted it 3 weeks ago in private audience with the Polish ambassador. Someone must have sketched it. Someone must have shared it. And now you wear it. Publicly. Bold move. Dangerous one. But what is court life, if not a dance on the edge of a knife? That night your scalp bleeds in 4 places where the pin's dug in. You don't wince. You hold still as your maid removes the wig, strand by strand, letting your real hair spill out in tired, sweaty clumps. You wonder if it's thinning. It is. Your temples feel sore when you press them. You find a small bald patch near your crown, just a coin's width. Your maid sees it too and says nothing. She hands you a cool cloth and turns away. In the candlelight your real hair looks faded. It doesn't catch the light anymore. It doesn't shine. You wrap it in linen and lie down, knowing tomorrow you'll wear the wig again. Because the game is played with inches. The higher the hair, the closer the power. And no one remembers the girl beneath the curls, only the silhouette she leaves behind. The vial is so small you almost miss it, tucked in a carved ivory case alongside other oddments. Powder for the nose, oil for the temples, a tiny velvet puff for the corners of the eyes. But this one is different. Clear glass, sealed with wax, and inside, a black liquid that clings to the sides like ink. Your maid handles it with unusual care, lifting it between two fingers as if it might hiss or bite. "Belladonna," she whispers, "for the eyes." You've heard of it before, of course. Everyone has. The liquid is deadly nightshade. A drop can stop the heart, but used carefully, just one drop, on the eye, makes the pupils dilate, opens them wide, makes you look awake, dreamy, hungry for meaning. That's what they say, at least. The first time you try it, it's under supervision. Your maid tilts your chin back and steadies your lid with the precision of a surgeon. One drop. Just one. It falls like oil, heavy and cold, and for a moment you think you've gone blind. Then the blur clears, and the room sharpens unnaturally. Candlelight seems to splinter. Faces glow strangely. Your own reflection looks unfamiliar. Eyes rounder, darker, almost wet. You blink, and even that feels slower. "Don't do more than one," your maid says, sealing the bottle again. "Not unless you want to fall down the stairs." Later that day, you wear your new eyes to court. The effect is immediate. People lean in when you speak. Men fumble their replies. Lady Cecily stares so hard at you during embroidery that she knots her thread 3 times in a row. You catch Lady Blanche watching, lips thin. It works. You see the change, and so it becomes part of your ritual. A drop before supper, a drop before dancing, never too often, never more than 2 days in a row. The effects last only a few hours, but they linger in memory. People recall how you looked at them, or rather, how you seemed to. Because that's the trick, it's not about vision. It's about being seen. They call it dew of the night, and some say Queen Elizabeth used it during her younger years to impress foreign dignitaries. Others say she forbade it, fearing poison in the vial. But here, in the hidden corners of noble chambers, it's a secret shared in low voices, passed like a charm. You store your vial inside your prayer book. Fitting, really. Both are used in preparation for judgment. Eventually, though, it begins to turn on you. The stinging comes first, then the headaches. One night, after a second drop, you stumble sideways and grab a curtain to steady yourself. You laugh it off, but your maid doesn't. She begins to measure the drops herself, then only allows it on feast days. You're angry. You call her jealous. But when you lie down that night, your pillow is wet with tears from eyes that won't stop weeping. You stare at the ceiling, vision trembling, and wonder what else beauty might cost you, besides sight. You don't throw the belladonna away. You should, but you don't. Instead, you move it to a locked cabinet near your combs and ribbon boxes, not out of reach, just harder to reach, like a letter you cannot send but can't quite burn. The days pass and your eyes begin to feel normal again. No stinging, no shadows crawling across your vision like beetles. But the mirror shows a change. Without the drops, your pupils look small, cold, less full of secrets, and people notice. The compliments taper. Your conversation partners grow distracted mid-sentence. You catch them glancing toward others. One suitor you'd been cautiously hopeful for now speaks mostly to Lady Anne, who just began using the drops herself. Her eyes gleam like wet ink when she tilts her head. The court is fickle, and your presence, once magnetic, feels suddenly soft around the edges. You begin reaching for the vial again. Only for special occasions, you say. only when it's absolutely necessary. But the definition of necessary becomes slippery. A cousin's betrothal dinner, a poetry reading, the Queen's hunting send-off. Each time, one drop, sometimes two. The headaches return, dull and familiar. Your maid gives you longer looks but says nothing. And then, one morning, you wake with your left eye red and puffy. A tightness behind it. Pain, like a dull knife between bone and socket. You cancel your visit to court. You sit in the window, blinking through the pane, watching a cat hunt pigeons in the garden gravel. That afternoon you make a decision. You gather your perfume flasks, your rouge pots, your brow tweezers, and the vial. You wrap them in a silk kerchief and carry them down yourself to the scullery fire. The kitchen girls part for you, surprised, but no one asks why. You drop the bundle in, it crackles. For a moment the air smells like roses and vinegar and something darker. Burnt herbs, maybe. Something secret unmaking itself. The next morning your eyes are clear, and yet, when you pass a mirror, you hesitate. You look plainer, yes, but also more real. That evening you sit in the Queen's audience chamber with no powder, no pigment, no poison. Just your own hair, twisted up with a single comb. No one remarks upon it. No one is cruel, but neither are they enchanted. Lady Blanche glances once, then turns back to her goblet. Lady Anne's belladonna gaze never wavers. You wonder how long she'll last. You wonder how long you lasted. The answer is in your cabinet upstairs, now half empty. It's strange, but your room smells sweeter, like rosemary and wax, like linen warmed by the sun, like something slowly remembering itself. You no longer chase the mirror, at least not in the same way. Your mornings are quieter now, fewer oils, fewer pins. Your hair, what's left of it, is brushed gently and twisted into modest knots. The paint pots are still there on the vanity, but they gather dust in their hinges. And you, well, you've become a different kind of spectacle. They still notice you at court, though not with the hungry eyes of the younger days. Now they come for your words, for your steadiness, for the way you remember small details. A cousin's dog's name, the exact hue of Lady Marlowe's poisoned gloves. Even the Queen, in her elusive way, offers a nod from time to time. You've learned something the others haven't yet, that there's beauty in silence, in watching instead of performing, in knowing when to stop pretending. But still, on some nights, you let yourself wander, back into the dressing room, back to its old cabinet with a false bottom drawer. It still creaks the same. Inside, one last relic. A tiny ivory jar, no bigger than your thumb, unlabelled. You know exactly what it is. The scent alone carries the memory. Crushed iris root, vinegar, a whisper of lead. The infamous Venetian ceruse, your oldest companion. This one you saved, just one. You pick it up and cradle it like a dried flower. You remember how it used to transform you, the way your skin caught the candlelight, white and smooth as paper. People used to stare, some with envy, some with worry, but always, always with attention. You never wore it for them, though, not really. You wore it for the girl in the mirror, the one who wanted to be admired so badly she'd coat her very skin in danger. And you wonder, what happened to her? Is she still in there, beneath the calm exterior, behind the careful lines of your face? Or did she vanish the day you threw the last of the belladonna into the fire? The jar feels warm in your hand. You open it. Inside, the paste has dried into pale cracks, like desert earth. You touch a fingertip to the surface. It leaves no mark, just dust. It no longer holds its power. Or perhaps you no longer need it. You smile, and for the first time in years, You close the drawer without regret. Later that night, you sit by the hearth with Lady Blanche. You're both older now, less sharp at the edges. She asks if you remember the first time you met. "I do," you say. "You wore orange blossoms in your hair and called me a schemer." She laughs, and the firelight flickers across her face. "You were a schemer," she says. You don't deny it, but neither of you brings up the rituals, the gloves, the wigs, the drops. Because what mattered, in the end, wasn't how you looked. It was how long you lasted. And in this place, survival is the finest beauty of all. Your steps echo a little differently now. Slower, yes, but more assured. You know where each creaking board lies beneath the tapestries. You know which doors groan, which servants whisper, which ladies smile with teeth sharpened by years at court. And more importantly, you know who you are. It takes time to become someone who no longer flinches at her own reflection. Years ago, you'd walk these halls as if the eyes of every duke and dowager might burn through your skin. You lived for their glances. You feared their silence. You padded your cheeks with rouge, painted your lashes with crushed coal, and once, memorably, tried a tooth stain so foul it turned your smile plum-coloured for 3 whole days. Now when someone stares, you let them. You don't flinch, because they're no longer seeing your face, they're seeing your legend. Your story is in the way your gowns fall simply, the way your hands rest quietly in your lap. You've become one of those women others lower their voices around, not because of youth, but because you've seen things, outlived fads, outlasted rivals. Lady Anne, remember her with a belladonna gaze, vanished from court after a bad fall down a stone stairwell. Rumour said her eyes were so blurred from the drops she missed a step. Lady Cecily became a favourite for a while. She wore gold-dusted powder made from crushed oyster shells, looked like a saint in candlelight, but her skin turned grey before she was 30. You sent her dried rose petals once. She never replied. You've seen it all, and perhaps strangest of all, you no longer envy the young ones who flit through the palace, perfumed and plucked, eyes gleaming with ambition. You watch them sometimes, with a tenderness you never expected. You want to tell them, it's not worth the poison, but they won't listen. You wouldn't have either. So you keep your wisdom quiet, folded into the corners of your silence. You smile when they pass, and in your chamber, above the hearth, hangs a portrait, an old one from your prime. A face like milk and silver, with pupils so wide they swallow the light. Sometimes guests ask about it. "That was you," they ask. You nod, and that's all, because the mystery is part of it too. You did what they all did, but you survived it, and now the most powerful thing you wear is nothing at all. The fire crackles low now, its glow wrapping the chamber in a warm hush. You lean back into the cushions, fingers resting lightly in your lap. No powders, no poisons, just breath, slow and even as the day slips further away. The candles burn shorter. Outside, the wind sighs through the ivy. You've wandered through the hidden world of beauty rituals, through mirrors that whispered lies and jars that held both promise and peril. You've stood in silk robes and let crushed pearls stain your skin, chased the gaze of others like it was the sun. But now you know something deeper. Beauty fades, but stories linger. And yours? Yours is still being told in quiet corners of the palace, in whispers passed between chambermaids, in glances cast toward an old woman's calm face, and the life she carved from a court that devoured so many. So rest now. Let the weight of the past dissolve into linen sheets. No more masks, no more mirrors, just the rhythm of your breath, the hush of the coals, and the soft certainty that you've made it through. Close your eyes. You've earned the quiet.